Welcome to the 15th episode of the Perfectly Imperfect Spiritual Podcast. I met my today's guest, Heather Doran, in Jordan Duval's Magnetic Brand Elite program. Heather is an accountant turned money detective. Not in the way you might think. She's dedicated to helping people explore their deep-rooted beliefs that have led them to being stuck and broke for years. Heather is passionate about raising the wealth consciousness of the planet. She specializes in a unique understanding of how money works and how a person's feelings about money create their reality. Heather will make her debut on the TEDx stage in May with her impact talk, The Art of Quiet Quitting. Heather's new book, Finally Worthy, Subconscious Money Healing from the Inside Out, will be released May 29th. After years of pursuing a corporate accounting career, Heather now supports entrepreneurs and business leaders with raising their inner and outer awareness with money and beliefs. This allows clients to lead from a space that supports others to do the same. She believes that we all have the power to change the world one person at a time, where you are the one person. When Heather's not filling her bank account, she's living her dream life in the country, chasing her free huskies, relaxing with her husband, and talking to nature. Welcome, Heather. Thank you for coming to the podcast.
Thank you so much. That was so fun to listen to that back.
I love your introduction, and well done on your TEDx talk and on your new book that's going to be released. That must have been
I'm
hard
really
work.
excited. Yeah, things are starting to kind of pick up in life.
Perfect. Well, I was hoping maybe we could start by you telling a little bit about, well, how did you become an accountant?
So that's an interesting story. I was going to college. I started college, right after high school. And I think, do you guys call college something a little bit different, where you're at? You call it secondary school, maybe?
Is this the high school that would be?
The one after high school.
Yeah, well, there is college as well.
Okay.
Yeah, you can go to university or you can go to college. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I went to a small college, the one in the city that I was living in, and I ended up getting pregnant that year that I started. So I had to pick a degree for school, even though I was doing just basic English, math, the classes that you have to take. They still told me that I needed to do uh, a degree. So I picked accounting. It wasn't really something that I knew much about. It was just kind of something that I was like, oh, okay, well, that sounds like that'll help me make money, take care of my child, that I was pregnant. And it was all really done from a space of, I think that's a good idea.
Okay. And how did it happen that you started trusting your intuition and you've incorporated it not only to your day-to-day life, but also into your own business?
Well, when I started really getting clear on what I wanted to do in life and just really reassessing, I had made about 15 years in my accounting career, and I came to a place where I just wasn't really feeling fulfilled. I wasn't really feeling like this was it. And I just felt kind of let down because I had been told my whole life, like, you go to college and you get a good job, and then, that job will support you, and then you'll be happy and have 2.5 kids and all of the things. And it really didn't happen. And so I started looking outward to say, okay, well, maybe I'll start a business. Maybe that's the thing that I can do. And as I started doing that, I started meeting people who were talking about intuition, were talking about kind of the subconscious and some of these underlying things, and really going from the inside. I didn't realize at the time I had always really been using my intuition, but I started to to put the two and two together when I started really learning more and more. What is intuition? How do I listen to it? How do I follow it? All of that stuff. And it really started out from a place of listening to those little nudges where it was, maybe take a jacket or turn this way,
Mm-hmm.
or, hey, you really probably want to pay attention to that. Just those little tiny things is where it started for me.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. And now, how do you help people with their money mindset?
Yeah. So what happened was when I started helping people with their bookkeeping, I found that it wasn't an issue that they were having where they didn't know how to do bookkeeping or they didn't know how to do their finances, but they were just simply avoiding it.
Okay.
And it wasn't a matter of not understanding because, all these people that I was working with, they're very capable, intelligent,
Mm-hmm.
people. And I'm like, I don't understand. Why can't they just, put numbers in a spreadsheet or open a bank account or open a bank statement? It wasn't actually about that. It was
Okay.
about an underlying subconscious belief that was running in the background. And when I started to dive into that side of why we do what we do, it really opened up the floodgates for me to understand that, we're holding so much in our body. It comes out in the form of anxiety, of all of these things. And we see it as, oh, I just don't understand money, or I just don't understand this, that, and the other. But really, it's that there's a deep rooted subconscious belief and story that's running under the surface that we just don't even realize is there.
Mm-hmm. It is so important. I would like to start maybe with you talking a little bit about the importance of us being in touch with our bodies. I've seen one of your posts and I've listened to one of your podcasts where you talked about the importance of allowing ourselves to feel. I think it's so crucial. It's so important to show our emotions and not to brush them off. And we're living in that society where there is that pressure to be happy-go-lucky all the time, positive, and I think all it does, it numbs you. So what's your understanding? How are feelings related to our money?
That's such a great question. So, you know, the reality is when we're very, very young or when we're born, we we create these things in our mind. Our brain is starting to learn our environment, and they really look to our caregivers, and your brain really looks to all the things that are happening. And so it has to create like some type of story to help you understand because you don't really have a lot of knowledge of the world. And
Mm-hmm.
so what happens is you everything ends up getting internalized when you're very young. So let's say your parents fight about money. You internalize that and say, "Oh, I must be doing something wrong. That's why they're fighting." And then down in that deep rooted thing, you create this belief about when I get money, then I'm going to fight. And I don't like it when people fight. And when people yell, it makes me feel uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And the signal that's being sent is it's being sent down into your body. So, if you've done any research on the ventral vagus nerve, it's really this stream that goes from the bottom of your neck and your brain stem, and it goes down into all of your main artery or your main organs in your body. And so what's happening is all of those memory points are being sent down into your body to keep you surviving, so to keep you breathing, to keep your heart going, to keep your food digesting, all of the things. So we have these unconscious things that are happening all the time to keep us alive. So we end up storing this memory of very uncomfortable things that happen to us. And then along with that story comes a story about what we made it believe in our own mind. And so it's stored actually in the body. So when we actually allow ourselves to feel, and when we allow ourselves to really emote our feelings, then we can get that energy and push it up and out and really show our body and really show our brain that, hey, it's safe to feel. It's safe to be seen. It's safe to do these things. And so, a lot of the things that I start with every client that I start working with is I teach them how to pause throughout their day, consciously pause
Mm-hmm.
and recognize and become aware of, hey, what was I just thinking? What was I just feeling? And what was just happening? Because what happens is your body, when you're running on a lot of anxiety and you're just going, your brain, a part of your brain that processes any type of creativity, any type of problem solving, that part of your brain is actually shut off. The blood is going to that prefrontal cortex of your brain, and it's only saying, stay alive, stay alive, stay alive, stay alive, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not processing, hey, how do I problem solve? I just got a tax bill. How do I
Mm-hmm.
problem solve? Hey, I need to pay my bill and I don't have enough money in my account. Hey, my kid needs money for this, but I don't have enough money in my, like, it can't process that because you're in this state of panic. So
Yes.
once you can start to bring yourself down and you can settle your body down, then you can start to turn those parts of your brain back on. Then you can start to process, okay, so something's happening. I'm feeling really anxious, so forth and so on. And so this is why I firmly believe that it's never about the money.
Mm-hmm.
So we think it's about the money. The money is like the activating thing that's like, holy shit, something's going on.
Mm-hmm.
But once we kind of go deeper down the layers, we can start to see, oh, it's actually not about the money. It's actually about something else, where that inside of us is feeling typically a lot of fear and not feeling safe. And again, when you're not feeling safe, that part of your brain needs to send those signals of stay alive, stay alive, stay alive.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing else can process the same when that's happening.
Mm-hmm. And it is so important because we can't really make a decision when we're in that fight and flight freeze state. And I know you also help your clients to actually uh, learn how to be, well, calm, you've mentioned, but also how to feel safe within their bodies. And I think this is so important because once they're relaxed, then they're able to tap into their intuition. And then probably, I can only imagine that this is then when you're able to help them heal their money blocks and work with their own beliefs.
Yeah, exactly. And that's really where you can start to understand that your worthiness and you just being inherently worthy isn't tied to anything. When you can start to really peel back those layers of, this happened in my family, I believed this, all of this stuff happened, you can really start to get down to the layers of, you're inherently worthy just because you're
Mm-hmm.
here on planet Earth. You're worthy of breathing. You're worthy of wanting things. You're worthy of desire. You're worthy of money. Like, you're worthy of these things. The problem is that your brain sends these signals to your body to feel really anxious and to feel these very uncomfortable feelings, in the essence to keep you really small and really safe. Because when you stay small and you stay in your little cocoon, your brain understands that little cocoon. Your brain doesn't understand this bigness. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't understand visibility. It doesn't understand money just like coming out of nowhere. It doesn't understand people coming and really truly loving you and accepting you for who you are. It doesn't understand that because a lot of times we didn't grow up with that. We grew up with avoiding. We grew up with parents who really weren't in tap with their own emotions. There was a lot of yelling. In a lot of cases there was abuse, and it's not to put our family, our caregivers down. They were doing the best that they could, but really from this space of understanding that these things happened, and now we can start to peel back these layers and really start to heal what I call from the inside out. And so that's where we start to do it instead of trying to throw action at oh, I'm just gonna do this thing to get more money. Like,
Mhm,
oh, for example, like I wasn't happy in my career. Oh, I'm just gonna go back to school. I'm gonna get another job. I'm gonna do a thing, do a thing, do a thing. And
mhm,
so it finally, where it came to the point of like, well, I'm doing all this stuff and nothing's landing. Like, I still feel like shit. I still feel anxious. I still don't really feel
mhm,
secure in my finances. Like, I have money, but it's not flowing by any means. And so, when I started to understand that that was really happening because that inside of me was feeling uncomfortable, it wasn't allowing me to do anything that was bigger than what it felt safe with, what those pieces inside of me felt safer to experience.
mhm. And this is so important to allow more and to do less when we.
Essentially, it
Yeah.
is
Mhm,
because you honestly, in our body, we've been taught so well through culture and through watching our caregivers. They just work and work and work, and it's like we feel like, oh, well, that's the solution. We'll just work. We'll just throw
mhm,
more action at it. And so, to be able to step back and say, okay, I'm not going to do anything is massively uncomfortable. I
mhm,
mean, over the last 4 years, I have really sunk into this place, and we're talking minute baby steps at a time. Like, I leave my phone on the charger. Okay, 4 hours went by, nobody died.
mhm,
Okay, good. Okay, I didn't check my email for a day. Nobody died. Okay, I can breathe. I mean, it's been a tiny process of that. And I'm even challenging myself at this point to say, okay, so what if I don't do any work related things during the weekend, even work related around the house? Because
mhm,
it's so culturally accepted. It's like, oh, well, we just do our chores. Like we wash our laundry and we clean out the bedroom and we clean the bathroom and we do all
mhm,
this stuff during the weekend. Well, what if I gave myself those 2 days to like not do any work? But my mind and body don't understand that. They're like, "Whoa, wait a second, there's a problem." And so what my job is to make myself feel understand that I'm
mhm,
safe even though I'm not doing a thing. I'm not going to lose my money, I'm not going to lose my job, I'm not going to lose my business. Having these like tiny incremental things, you realize, okay, I'm okay and it's still safe for me to do these things. And so by creating that safety, then I can have the downtime. It creates more clarity in my mind. I feel better in my body. Then I can
mhm,
show up Monday morning and hit the ground running, for example. But again, it goes back to, where is the story lying with me, why you're maybe not making more money or why you're not getting client calls or why you're not having all these things. It's not coming from a place of people don't want to buy from you.
mhm.
It's coming from an energetic level that's happening in your body and typically a belief system.
Mhm. This is so important. And I also believe that feeling a little bit uncomfortable, it's an indication that we are actually growing, that we are actually heading to the right direction. So,
Yeah,
uh,
exactly. Because what's happening is you're stretching, and you want to be really careful because a lot of people tout this whole like take a massive action thing. The problem is that when you take action that's way out of your
mhm,
comfort zone, is that you create it's like a rubber band. You stretch it too far and then it snaps right back.
mhm,
So what you really want to do is you want to become uncomfortable, but uncomfortable enough that you can just be like, okay, I'm feeling uncomfortable right now.
mhm,
I'm safe. I'm not going to die. I'm not going to stop breathing. And like you go through this process of helping your body understand that I'm okay right now. And so
mhm,
instead of going from the space of I'm uncomfortable, ooh, I'm going to go way back,
mhm,
it's I'm uncomfortable, I'm going to pause. I'm going to let this land. I'm going to let my system understand that nothing is going to happen because I have now stepped into an uncomfortable place.
Mm-hmm. That's so important.
And this
And
happens with our money,
yeah.
you know, like for example, this happens with our money when we start to make more money.
Mm-hmm.
When we start to make more money, our system becomes wildly uncomfortable. I mean, think about any time that you have gotten unexpected money and your account has kind of gone up over that threshold of like, oh, I've never had this much money in my
Mm-hmm.
account. And so what happens is you get really uncomfortable, and then subconsciously you don't realize it. You start to worry, you start to like do all of these things. And then what happens? Like the car, something happens to your car, the car breaks, your kid gets sick, you got to go to the hospital, all this stuff, because we subconsciously create that energy to just get things all twisted back up so that we can come back down into this low level shit,
Mm-hmm.
basically, that we're holding on to. And so a lot of times what we have to do is we have to energetically hold that space. So energetically, like, okay, my account has a little bit more money than it's had before. I'm uncomfortable. And that's the time to go like, okay, I can do this. Like I can hold this. I'm worthy. I mean, ultimately again, like the book that I wrote was really about understanding your inherent worthiness and really coming back to like, I'm worthy of having this money in my account. I didn't have to do anything for it. I'm worthy of this. And so it's bringing it back to those places.
Because it's one thing manifesting money, the other one is keeping that money. And I'm sure
Mhm.
you help your clients as well with that, because when we've got all those limiting beliefs, then you can attract money, but then like as you've mentioned, something happens or people spend money, don't invest, and they make very poor financial decisions, and then they end up in the situation where they used to be before without doing any
Yeah.
inner work.
I was actually listening to something with I think it was Will Smith, you know, that does the
Mhm.
well, I mean, I'm sure everybody's heard of Will Smith, but you know, when he started his career being on uh the first sitcom that he did, he went out and bought a bunch of stuff, and he owed the IRS money. And so if the solution was like, oh, just get a bunch of money, then people wouldn't have these situations where then they just go out and spend it all, because there's again because it's on a subconscious level that we just don't even realize that we ultimately sabotage that. And you know, I have a client that I'm working with right now that can manifest things like just nobody, like something happens, you know, like
Mhm.
she had a thing happen with insurance and she like manifested this extra money to like out of nowhere and all of these things. But simultaneously she's overworking, she's overgiving her time,
Mhm.
she feels extremely stressed in her body. Her finances are just all over the place. She's got money going here, things are late, all of that stuff. And so, and not from a place of judgment, because I don't come in from that space,
Mhm.
but ultimately helping her, number one, not judge it, like realize, like, okay, what's going on?
Mhm.
And number two, start to become aware of where am I overgiving? How am I not even allowing flow and ease in my day? Things like getting up to go pee. Like, how often do you sit at your desk and force yourself to push through when you got to freaking get up and go get a drink of water and go pee? Like, those are the types of things that I start incrementally working with clients on. And it's funny, they're always like, okay, well, what the hell does this have to do with my money? And I'm like, because if you can't hold this type of receivership with receiving that, oh, I can allow my body to be refreshed to get up to go pee. If I can't even receive that type of small receivership and understand that I'm ultimately worthy at that small level, you'll never get it when you're a millionaire.
Mhm.
And so it's helping you understand that you're worthy now and feeling that in your body, feeling that in your system, and starting to calm your nervous system through the day. Like realize, okay, where am I stressing out? Where am I like completely losing it? Because we all have shit. We all have shit. We all have stress. but it's starting to become consciously aware that I'm not like I'm overreacting to this, or maybe I'm creating the situation or whatever it is. So it's starting to again bring that back down to become subconsciously aware of like, okay, why is this a big deal? Why am I so upset about this? Why am I, activated? All the things. Because think about how many times like you hold your breath every
Mm-hmm.
day.
Yeah.
Like if you don't pause through the day to realize, oh shit, I'm holding my breath, you're actually not allowing that flow to happen there. And again, what does this have to do with your money? Because these are the things that create the like quote unquote blocks for you having more money. It's these types of things we're in this smaller space in our life, we start to heal this and it starts to stack on and stack on and stack on.
Mm-hmm. Two things come to my mind. One, well, the importance of actually slowing down in the mornings. Well, I've tried before, like I was very harsh on myself, and I've tried that waking up at 5 a.m. and then like working out and doing, and then I would put my body into a fight and flight mode, and then my kids would want something. So now I'm all about, well, as much as I can, slowing down. So would you be able to talk a little bit about the importance of even taking the time in the morning to enjoy your cup of coffee or tea, as opposed to rushing and then like putting your body mind into that fight and flight response?
Yeah. I love that you asked this question because when I started doing this work of pausing through my day and really here's the other thing, asking myself what I wanted. So
Mm-hmm.
here I was, I got myself to the space of, success in my career, right? And I had been doing because that's what you're quote unquote supposed to do. And I got to this place of like, what do I even want? Like, how do
Mm-hmm.
I want my day to look? And that's the first thing that I started with because I didn't really know what I wanted. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
really know that. I mean, I guess I wanted money and I guess I wanted this and but I was like, I just want to slow down in the morning. Like I want to be able to sit on the back patio, sip my coffee,
Mm-hmm.
watch my dogs run around,
Mm-hmm.
listen to the birds and the little
Mm-hmm.
animals scream. Like that's the first thing when I started doing this work and slowing down, that is literally the first thing that I did. The other thing was that I I didn't push myself to do that whole 5 a.m. thing because I were really tuned into my body
Mm-hmm.
and my body was like, you don't
Mm-hmm.
feel good when you get up 5 o'clock in the morning
No.
and the sun's not up yet.
No.
Right. And so that's part of that intuitive work
Mm-hmm.
and listening to it. And it's funny because I have ADHD and the client that I just started working with, she has ADHD a lot worse than I do. And she was telling me, she's like, yeah, so I started doing this like I don't know, some kind of calendar system about where you do this and that. And she schedules her thing out and she's like, yeah, I'm starting to get better at this.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, and I said, no, stop. You cannot do that. Your brain is different. Your body is different. And you are trying to fit a round thing, a round peg into a square hole, and it's never going to fit.
Mm-hmm.
And what we ended up coming down to is I was like, okay, like, are you listening to your body? Like, I ended up doing a whole worthiness thing with her where she put her hand on her heart and she like actually talked to her inner self and it started to activate something in her like, whoa, maybe I don't feel that I love myself that much. Maybe I don't feel worthy enough. So, again, especially the morning stuff or whatever feels good to you. This is the thing. What I have clients do honestly is I have them do it 90 seconds at a time. For people who are
Mm-hmm.
just so completely like, I can't do this. Number one, you can do this. It's a decision. Number two, it's done in incremental times where I have clients set alarms. We call them breathing alarms, where you pause throughout your day and you breathe for 90 seconds. You do a deep breathe in, hold it, a deep breathe down, and you do that 4 times. And what it does is it puts you back down into your parasympathetic. And then you're able to like, okay, what was just happening? What was I just freaking out about? What was
Mm-hmm.
I just, all the things. And so for people who are just so used to going, it's starting to do it 90 seconds at a time. And your brain is going to tell you, you don't have time for that. We're too busy. But the reality is in order to get to the things you want, it's a vital must. And honestly, seriously, you don't have 90 seconds to go pee. Like how,
Mm-hmm.
like it's those types of things, but it's so funny that your brain will like trick you into, oh, I don't have time for that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lie. It's an absolute lie.
Mm-hmm. Is this also something that can support people? I'm sure you've got many clients who find their outer world overwhelming, and they really believe that, or frequently they are in challenging situations, or things are happening not the way they would like. So what are the ways, what would you suggest to the viewers and listeners, how to feel good inside despite of all what's going around us?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is that there's a big pull to want to just like bypass it and just ignore it, right? Really ignoring the fact that I feel massively uncomfortable in my situation. I'm maybe not happy with my job. I'm, whatever the situation, maybe your job is triggering something that happened in a past job and, you're wanting to cry all the time. And, whatever the situation, I think the first thing is that you really have to come to this space of being honest with yourself and saying like, hey, this isn't working for me, like whether it's the house that you're living in because you're in the city, if it's the job that you have, whatever the situation is, right? It's coming to this like, hello, like come to Jesus moment, I call it, is that okay, you got to acknowledge it. Like you've got to acknowledge how you're feeling. Not that you have to change anything, not that you have to tell anybody, not that you need to do anything right now, but it's really just coming to this space of awareness that, hey, this isn't working for me. I don't feel comfortable here. I don't feel comfortable in whatever the situation is. And then what I do, and I do this with finances and I work with clients with this, is once you look at it, it's like looking at data, right? Like you pull up a spreadsheet and you're like, oh, look, I overspent this month. And it's like, okay, there's the data. And then it's like, oh, well, that makes me feel shame. That makes me feel sad. I want to cry. I want all the things. Then you start to allow the emotion to come, whatever it is, and don't like hold it in. Like don't put this laser, this like this paper in front of it and say, oh, well, I can only cry this much, or I've been
Mm-hmm.
crying so much and my kids are coming home and they can't see me cry,
Mm-hmm.
God forbid. Whatever the situation is, it's starting to do those things of becoming aware, feeling your emotions, and then start to allow your intuition to say, hey, what if we did this?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, what if we did that? Hey, like that's where the information is going to start coming through, is in these spaces of allowing it to come in. But you can't simultaneously heal these things when you're in shame and guilt, and when you're also in that space of that fight or flight. No intuition is going to come in and help you.
Mm-hmm.
So once you can start to come down there, then you can start to allow your intuition to come in and say, hey, well, maybe so and so has, I can reach out to them, or like you'll start to notice a billboard, or you'll see a commercial, or you'll see somebody post about something, or whatever it is. It's because your subconscious mind starts coming back online and it starts to go, oh, we're looking for a solution for this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, can we talk a little bit about running our businesses? I love that metaphor that you've used. Can you talk about our inner girls, inner voice running our businesses as opposed to adults? I feel like it's so important.
Yeah. So I have been doing a lot of inner child work. And, if you really think about it, your subconscious is really like this 4-year-old little child. And your subconscious was really built during this time when you were very little. And so a lot of the programming that you're running off of right now is really been developed by that 4-year-old little space. And so your subconscious doesn't really communicate in like big words, right? So if you think about a 4-year-old, they can see pictures and
Mm-hmm.
they can hear sounds and they can communicate in more basic language. That's exactly how your subconscious communicates. And so what happens is that that little space of you is very wounded.
Mm-hmm.
You had situations where your parents walked out on you, which created it's not safe to be around people. People don't really like me. I don't really, whatever the thing is. I mean, for me, it was my mom left when I was 2,
Mm-hmm.
which created this massive distrust in human beings. And I made the story believe I'm not even good enough to be in the room with other people. And so that story, that little wounded girl inside of me is like, oh, well, people aren't safe. Mm-mm.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna stay here. We're gonna stay safe. And so when that's the programming that's running, what are you doing with your business? Are you talking to people? If you ultimately that little space inside of you feels people aren't safe, are they gonna help you? Or are they gonna hinder the fact that you're going out and trying to talk to people?
Mm-hmm.
That isn't safe.
Mm-hmm.
You've got situations with money. Oh, well, my dad left, and my mom didn't have any money, and money's not safe. Do you think that your little subconscious space is going to allow you to do that? Oh my gosh, so and so, Susie, she needs help. Oh, we
Mm-hmm.
can't charge her
Mm-hmm.
money. Oh no, because little kids don't have concept of money. Oh yeah, we're just gonna give everything for
Mm-hmm.
free. We're just
Mm-hmm.
gonna because Susie really needs our
Mm-hmm.
help, right? So that's the little space inside of you that's running your business. And so what our job is to communicate with that little space and say, okay, what's going on? We don't want to charge money. Okay, well, why am I feeling scared and nervous to charge money for this? Like what part of me is feeling uncomfortable? A lot of times you can associate it back to an event, typically an event or a memory that happened. And it's not from a place of like go live there or go revisit your trauma. That's not what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying. What I'm saying is to use that as a place of information and use that as a place of data. So again, like in my situation, I look at this and go, oh, well, my little girl doesn't think people even want her in the room.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's what she's feeling right now, my job is to say, okay, well, tell me what's going on. Why are you feeling that way? Why do you feel like people, okay, well, let's have evidence. I mean, we just helped Susie last week and she was so grateful. And we just did this. I mean, the other thing too is starting to have more and more things like some days I wake up and I'm like, I'm adulting. I have a house. I like pay bills. Like it's so interesting. I don't know if you ever have that where you just wake up and you're like, I'm adulting. Like I'm doing this,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's because that little girl inside of you is like, wait, what just happened, right? So a lot of times what you can do is you almost like walk your little girl, like, your intuition side, you like walk her around your house and go, look at what we did. Look at what we built. Like, look at this. And you bring her in and help her feel safe. And when she feels safe, she goes out and plays. You're like, okay, you go out and play. I'm going to go run the business today. I'm going to make big girl decisions. I'm going to set boundaries. I'm going to set rules. I'm going to communicate with people. I'm going to make sure that I take responsibility. Other people take responsibility, so forth and so on. And those are things that our adult us do, but our little child us that's really wounded, they don't want us to do that because they're really hurt.
Mm-hmm. And do you think that us communicating with our inner child is a way forward to support our adult selves in, for instance, raising our prices, charging more? Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, exactly. Because again, like when you think about raising your prices, and you talk to that little space inside of you. And for example, like that brings up a time when maybe you didn't have, your parents didn't have enough money to feed you, right? Or there wasn't enough for Christmas. And so then it's like, oh, well, if you charge more money, then the people that you want to help, they might not have enough money and they might not have enough food. And for Christmas, you see what I'm saying? Like
Mm-hmm.
that little space inside of you is like, hey, but if we do that, we might be leaving somebody out, right? And so that's our job to say, okay, but you have everything you need, right? Like you feel safe. So it's to help that little side feel safe. And then once that little part of us can feel safe, then we can say, okay, so us future self, because it's, you know, it's really coming from our future higher self. Then
Mm-hmm.
we can bring in our higher self to say, okay, higher self, what are you seeing for me? And then it's starting to pull in that energy from that higher self to say, okay. And so it's really going back to that place where I was telling you, where you feel uncomfortable. So you want to do it in a way that it's stretching you, but it's not throwing you so far out that you're so triggered by the fact that
Mm-hmm.
you've charged way too much money and you're never going to be able to get it out of your mouth that, like, I charge this much money. So it's that balance between you're stretching yourself and you're leaning into your higher self, and then you're simultaneously also making sure that that little space inside of you is feeling seen and heard.
Mm-hmm. And do you think this is the way forward to break that upper ceiling to up level financially by being
I think it's a
gentle
big
and
part of it.
Mhm. What
Yeah.
are other ways of being able, because I am aware that so many people have that upper ceiling and they reach an X amount of money and then they're not able really to go beyond that. Would you be able to
Yeah.
talk
So
about that?
that I really honestly think that a lot of that is coming from discomfort. So like you read the book The Big Leap, which you read that book, The Big Leap?
No.
With Kay Hendricks. So he actually talks about the upper limit in his book, and he talks about it being a thermostat setting. So if you think about it being a thermostat setting, um, and it goes from, like, let's say it goes from summer to winter, and you want to adjust the thermostat. You're like, whoa, like I'm feeling like the room temperature isn't feeling very good. So a lot of times what ends up happening over time as you go through the summer, you start to become more acclimated to it's warmer. So you
Mm-hmm.
don't adjust that thermostat setting as much. So a big part of becoming acclimated to your new temperature or to your new monetary situation is the first thing that you have to do is you have to pause. You literally have to. And in some cases, like I have a mentor that she used to get money. She used to have $100,000 launches. And she's like, oh, I'm going to go send it now. We need a new couch and a new car and like
Mm-hmm.
all the things. Right. And so she literally would sit on her hands.
Mm-hmm.
She said she would literally sit on her hands and she would just breathe because you're again, it sends you into that fight or flight situation in that prefrontal cortex of your brain. And that's running. And it's like, oh my God, you're going to die. You're going to die. You're not safe. You're
Mm-hmm.
not safe. You can't. Right. And so it's in that space of you have to pause and you have to really look at, okay, what's actually going on? What do I actually believe it's going to mean when I have $100,000? When I actually hit that ceiling, what do I believe internally that's going to happen to me when that happens? And so once you start to like get that data of, well, I think that my spouse is going to leave me if I make that much money, or my kids are going to want a bunch of my money, or my family, or whatever it is, right? So if you have that story that's
Mm-hmm.
running, you have to first figure out, okay, what's the story happening? And then what do I need to do to help that part of myself understand that it's safe to have that, and it's safe, again, that I'm ultimately worthy of having or doing or whatever.
Mm-hmm. So are we ultimately then rewriting, well, our nervous system, upgrading it, and then substituting old beliefs with the new belief system?
Yeah,
That's the
essentially
point.
that's what you're doing. You're really healing that story and really, really helping that story understand that that was made during a time that you didn't really understand the world. Your caregivers were well-intentioned, but they were thinking about a lot of other things. Um, and really and truly the fact that none of us really had a chance of coming out more conscious because we've not until recently really lived in a space of more consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
So for the most part, none of us really had a chance of having that. And so it's really understanding that piece and then giving yourself massive amounts of love and compassion for, okay, I once believed this, which led me to take this action
Mm-hmm.
that I might feel shame about. And that's okay. And I did that under the situations where I knew the best to do. And then I think, yes, you ultimately do rewrite it, but I really think that it comes in this space of allowing your mind and body to accept that that's what that is and that it's okay and that ultimately you're safe because it's really coming from a place of fear.
Mm-hmm. So it all brings us back to our bodies, to our emotions. So
It
how to feel?
really does. It
Mm-hmm.
really does because that's really where your subconscious, that's where you're able to tap into your intuition. I mean, your intuition ultimately lives in your body. If you can sense what's happening in your body, when you pause long enough to breathe and start to feel your body, you'll sense parts of your body activated. I was in a seminar or a I don't know, training or whatever it was. And the lady, she was going over shadow work and she started saying words like, um, I can't remember what it was. She just started saying words.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're tapped in, you feel little nudges in your body. That's your
Mm-hmm.
intuition. It's telling you, hey, I feel uncomfortable. I don't feel comfortable, whatever it is. And it's our job to notice that. And when we notice it, to have it as a data point, not as a point of, hey, I need to shame the shit out of you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you also talk about the importance, I know you talked about the importance of uh, loving ourselves, caring, well, looking after ourselves, but I know you also talk about, well, what to do, how to take care of money once we've received, how to really love, care, and then pay attention to it. Could you be able to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So it's so interesting because I get this question a lot about like, okay, well, how do you like do these tactical things with your money?
Mm-hmm.
I think that most of us already know what to do. I think that most of us, we we're intelligent, like we're intelligent enough to build a business, to make a website, to get a credit card, to
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is, right? To get a job, to fill out the forms. Like we are massively intelligent human beings, women and men. And so, I think it comes back to a space of why do you feel like such a need to find like an external thing, right? So like
Mm-hmm.
really looking at that and going, well, I find it more helpful when I have kind of like a worksheet that somebody started and then I can put the numbers in. Okay, great. Then that's what you go look for, right? Or like, I really want to know how I can get like better interest on my money. Okay, great. That's what you go look for. So it's really looking at it from a space of, I don't really understand this thing, and I really want to learn about this thing, but not taking it from a space of, I don't have a clue and I'm really another story. I'm really bad with money or all the things, right? And so it's really again starting to rewrite, what do I think? What is my belief structure? And what is actually the truth? And the truth is that you are a massively intelligent human being. Like, I mean, you figured out how to turn the podcast app on your phone, like all the things,
Mhm.
So, I mean, I think that's the biggest thing I encourage people to do. I go through a process with clients where we look at their money as far as like, okay, so you made this much money and maybe sold this many units or whatever it is, and then like you have these expenses. And it's interesting when you see the numbers on the screen or on the
Mhm.
paper, whatever it is, like you're actually looking at the
Mhm.
thing, not in your head, like
Mhm.
you're actually looking at a thing.
Yes.
There's something that happens where your body normally gets triggered by this because it's triggering.
Mhm.
Your body gets triggered in some way. And so what I do is I have the client just I just sit with it and say, okay, like, wait, again, let your intuition come in. And that's typically where the intuition's going to come in and say, well, why didn't we sell more of this? Or do you think it had to do with that? Or should we look at the marketing here? Or, I don't really think I need these 9,000 subscriptions that I have set up,
Mhm.
or whatever it is. But really looking at it from a space of, again, not judging it,
Mhm.
and also again, sitting with it, like just sitting with the discomfort. My husband and I actually do this with our credit, that with like our debt that we have. So we have some credit cards, and then we also do this with our monthly like money that we have, like water and all the things.
Mhm.
So we typically do it about 6 months, every 6 months or so, where we'll sit down and go, okay, what do we spend? Like, what's all the things that we're spending the money on?
Mhm.
Like, do we have a subscription to this? We have a subscription to that. We're, whatever.
Mhm.
And so when you can actually look at it and go, okay,
Mhm.
well, if we maybe like we made dinner more often instead of
Mhm.
ordering out, like we'd have a little bit more money here, or like, hey, whatever it is. But looking at that, and even looking at like how much, what are the credit card numbers, like,
Mhm.
how many thousands of dollars you on credit card or loans or student loans,
Mhm.
looking at that, it's very activating. And so it doing that activity and then pausing and then just being like, okay. And it might take a day, it might take 2 days, it takes a couple days. And then once it starts to kind of integrate and you're not so activated by it, then
Mhm.
you can start to go, okay, intuition, tell me what you got. And then that's when you start to ask the questions, and then you'll reach out like to your mentor or to your whatever. And that's when it starts to flow.
Mhm. This is such an important, well, thing to do that, yeah, I think I would recommend to anyone to be able to look like in writing, to have it just in front of you, to have all of the figures,
It
what's
is
coming
because like
in,
we
what's
have
coming
it all in
out.
our head. We're like, I owe this to the student loan company, and I owe this to the
Mhm.
credit card company. I owe this, and it's like there's something that happens when you see it all.
Mhm. Okay. Well, any final thoughts? Anything that you feel it's important to share with the viewers and the listeners about money mindset?
Um, I just want to say that you are a worthy human. I just want to remind everybody you are a worthy human. And that you're an intelligent, worthy human. I mean, I really feel like that's the last thing that I want to say. And when you really start to go inward, you are going to start to see where this is affecting your money and really start to help you heal it.
Beautiful. And finally, could you share with the listeners and the viewers how people can find you and what are your offerings?
Yeah, so my book is coming out later this month. It is going to be on Amazon, so it can, wherever you're at, you can get a copy of it. It is called Worthy Human. Um, and I am also doing a book launch. There's a link for that, just to get more involved, see some of the behind the scenes, get
Mm-hmm.
some early stuff on that. I'm also doing some giveaways, some free coaching and that type of thing. So that's really what I have going on right now, is just working on the launch and getting this book into people's hands, because
Yes.
I really feel like that a lot of people are going to resonate with what I wrote. And I really believe that this is going to be a great avenue to help people start to heal these pieces.
Definitely, you're doing such an important work. And again, good luck with your launch. Good luck with your TED Talk. And it's been a pleasure having you here on the podcast.
Yes,
Thank
thank you
you.
so much. I've so appreciated it.
Yeah. Thank you. And goodbye to all of the viewers and the listeners. Goodbye.